Welcome to another episode of A Latte Words, where we sip some coffee and talk about words. So as some of you might already know, I am a copywriter as my day job, and I've been copywriting for a little over 5 years on and off, and I've been in every type of copywriting job, including freelance, agency, and in-house, which I will get to in a moment. But I wanted to just introduce copywriting to anybody who might be interested in the subject. I know a lot of fellow fiction writers are interested in potentially making copywriting their day job while they're working on their scripts or their manuscripts or their videos, which are also scripts. So with that in mind, I was thinking of creating a series all about copywriting where I can kind of give you some tutorials, some tips to get you started in the copywriting world. I think it's actually a very fascinating world to be in, especially right now with everything going on. It's definitely an in-demand career, and I see a lot of growth potential within it. And so there's also that potential to get creative and to be writing as part of your day job, which for me was always a dream. It was always something I wanted to do. And I'm so thankful that I've been able to get into this career path. So I thought I would share with you some tips to get started, especially this year, some really important things to be thinking about, and I've got 5 tips total to go through. So without further ado, let's dive in and get started. Read everything. The moment you decide you want to get into copywriting, the absolutely first thing you should do is start reading and consuming as much information about the subject as possible. While I, of course, always recommend potentially taking some courses in copywriting, or if you are still in college, maybe even considering making English language or writing or even journalism your major, that might be very helpful. For me, my major was English literature, and that was sufficient enough for me to get started for sure. Really, for copywriting, the biggest thing is having experience, which we will also get to in a moment. But you do want to lay a groundwork and a foundation of just studying up and reading and researching. So one book that I recommend is called Everybody Writes by Anne Handley. And this is really, really helpful specifically for content marketing and getting into the sort of businessy side of writing. This is really great for people who maybe haven't done any kind of copywriting or maybe any kind of writing in general. Maybe you're coming here all fresh and brand new and you've never been in the writing realm before. This is a great place to start. But even for my fiction writers who are watching, it's still very helpful to read this, even though it's a little bit basic in some points because we have been writing for some time. It's still helpful to get into sort of a business mindset when you're reading this and see how content works from a nonfiction business perspective. This book is all about choosing your words wisely and making sure that your words have an impact within the content marketing world. Another book that I'm going to touch on a little bit later for your branding is called Content Incorporated. This book is all about building a startup business from scratch and how content creation can help you stick out from the crowd. So even though it's marketed a little bit more to entrepreneurs, it's still very, very helpful for content writers to get into that headspace. And as I'll mention later, it is also helpful for your branding. Beyond reading, I would also recommend making a list of your top favorite brands, maybe the top 10 favorite brands that you have, and think about why you like them, what are they doing with their content, what are they doing with their branding, and what you can pick out from them to make your copywriting stand out. This is actually a trick fiction writers use all the time because we're constantly devouring novels, especially within our genres, in order to really make our own writing better. And reading just helps us pick up all of those special little nuances that we can then translate to our own writing. So when you think about your favorite brands, you kind of want to emulate them. And reading all of their content, going and looking at their articles and blogs and videos, it will help you pick up those little nuances for your own writing as well. So number 2 is thinking about what kind of content do you want to create? So one umbrella term that you should probably learn is called inbound marketing. And that is essentially any kind of marketing that brings the customer to the business. So examples of inbound marketing might be an interesting blog post or an informative video, something that's a little bit light in terms of advertising. You really just want to make something informative and interesting, and then that brings in potential customers. On the other side of things is paid advertising. Those are those Facebook ads that you see on the corner, and when you're on YouTube, when you get those advertisements that seem to be popping up more and more and more with every video, those are paid ads. So a business goes in and pays the platform to show their ads. And so with paid ads, usually content writers have to be very, very specific about exactly what they're saying. It has to be kind of short and snappy, and it really has to be engaging and to the point. Whereas with inbound marketing, it's a little bit more SEO focused and a little bit more fluid and creative in terms of what you're putting out there. And as you probably already know, all these types of content come in different lengths. So for example, for Facebook ads, they're very, very short. You've got to be thinking about how you can get the most for your limited word count, kind of like Twitter posts. But it's super important that you're very targeted with Facebook ads and Google ads and things like that. It's very, very specific. But then you've also got maybe a long form video script where you've got thousands of words to write, and you're writing in a more communicative fashion rather than maybe a little bit more formal like you might in an ebook. So it's definitely worth it to take some time to think about the kind of content that you want to be creating. And that leads us into point number 3, which is find your subject niche. So once you've kind of figured out what you want to do in terms of content creation, now you can start to think about what the subject matter is that you want to really focus on. Now, if you're thinking about going into agency work or even in-house companies, you may not necessarily care too much about this side of things, but especially for freelancers, this is very, very important to think about. And honestly, I think for agency and in-house workers, it's an important thing to think about what your passions are so that you can continue enjoying writing what you love. So I think it would be valuable for you to write down all of the things that you already know. And especially all of you people from STEM fields, I'm so jealous of you because honestly, right now, that's what everybody wants. They want the scientists, they want the mathematicians, the engineers who have all of this background knowledge that they can then share. And right now, STEM is just really, really hot in the fields of copywriting and content creation. So if you have any kind of a STEM background, use that to your advantage. But really, any kind of hobby, any interest, all of those can be used to your advantage, and it can help you kind of really niche down to exactly what you want to do. Because you do want to make sure that at the end of the day, the content you're writing is something that you're interested in and that you enjoy. Because trust me, if you are not interested in what you're writing about, you will not last as a copywriter. The old adage is definitely true. Write what you know, but also what you love. After you've figured all of the previous steps out, now you want to actually think about branding yourself. And this is regardless of where you go, whether you're an in-house copywriter or a freelancer, you want to brand yourself. You want to make yourself shine. And this is actually a great opportunity for you to practice your writing and practice your content marketing by using yourself as a guinea pig. You want to think about your niche and highlight your strengths within your niche, and build a website for yourself and really brand yourself out and make sure that that website is really good looking and really great for any potential employers or clients. I would also recommend choosing 1 or 2 social media platforms to create a professional page where you can really highlight, again, all of your expertise, all of your knowledge, and any portfolio work that you might have. That's where you can post any links to any content that you've created so far and have that all there for your followers to see and grow a following as well. And again, this might sound like it's more for freelancers, but really it's also for anybody anybody seeking a job these days. You do really need to have a presence on social media. You do need to have a website, and all of that requires branding and creating a persona for yourself that shows exactly how professional you are as a writer. I know that sounds overwhelming, especially if you're just getting started and maybe you don't even have any writing experience. But that's okay. Take your time getting that writing experience and using your website and your social media platforms to practice with that writing. And that comes to my final tip, number 5, which is to get yourself out there. First, though, do you want to go freelance? Do you want to go in-house, or do you want to go agency? So I've done all 3, and there are pros and cons to each, which I will touch on in a future video. But for now, the short of it is freelance, you have a ton of autonomy. You get to choose your clients, you get to choose your subject matters, and also how much you get paid. So that's always very helpful. But it's also not the most stable way to go, for sure. You're not going to get a stable salary, at least not off the bat, and it's a lot of work to get to a stable salary later on. Another downside of freelance, I absolutely hate this part, is doing taxes. It's the most annoying thing in the world, and unless you're making a lot of money from it, it's not even worth it getting a tax accountant. So you have to kind of do it yourself and learn a lot about the nuances of freelance tax. And especially for Americans, it's so annoying. The other option, of course, is working in-house. So for that, basically, you are just working for one company and one brand, and you just have to stick to that. You just have to stick to that voice and those guidelines, and it all stays the same. And maybe you'll have different projects within that brand, but it's all one idea, one subject matter. And I did that for one company here in the UK, and it was very interesting just to be able to become kind of an expert in this brand and to just be able to stick to one thing. It was kind of nice and kind of a break for me because I'd always done either freelance or agency work, which requires a lot of different branding information and sticking to different types of guidelines. So if you want to stick to one thing and become an expert in it, then I would definitely recommend going in-house. And finally, there is agency work, which is basically where you are working for a marketing agency who then gives you different clients who can be from any different subject matter. I have clients right now that I'm working for from like one end of the spectrum in tech to the other end in medical, and it can be a lot of different interesting material, but it can also be very challenging because not only are you jumping between subject matters, but you're also jumping between branding guidelines. And so it's definitely something where you have to be okay with going from one thing to the other pretty rapidly, pretty much every day. Right now we're seeing a huge need for copywriters. I feel like the demand has gone up a lot in the past few years, especially since the pandemic and everything. I think people are starting to recognize the importance of content marketing, especially digitally, and how businesses are growing online. So I definitely recommend getting into this field now. I think it's a great time to do it. Just jump in, just try it out. But in terms of your first few projects, maybe I would recommend doing 1 or 2 for free, but no more than 2, quite honestly. You need to learn to value yourself from the beginning because there are so many clients who will try to either get you to do something for free or pro bono, or you'll get this much money later on if you get this many views. I really wouldn't recommend doing that because it not only does a disservice to you, but it does a disservice to other writers because then it brings our overall global value down. If one writer is willing to do it for free, but another is not, who do you think the company is going to choose? But yeah, for building a portfolio, maybe 1 or 2 free or very, very low paying gigs is a good way to go, but I really wouldn't recommend doing too many. And if you are really concerned about building that portfolio and you want more than just 1 or 2 gigs under your belt before trying to reach out to either potential clients or to bigger jobs, then I recommend going to places like Medium. You just sign up for a free account and you have all of your work just published on that. You can get views, you can get feedback, and if you have enough followers, you can even get a little bit of money depending on how many views you get. So I definitely recommend Medium for those starting out who just want to really, really build their portfolio, but don't want to get taken advantage of. And another source is even your website. Create a blog on your website, and that can be a great way to build your portfolio or at least practice your writing in general. Anyway, I hope these 5 tips have helped you today, and let me know in the comments below. Are you thinking about becoming a copywriter? Or have you been a copywriter for a while and you have some extra tips you want to add to help everybody else along as well? Please let me know in the comments. Also, please make sure to subscribe to get more tips on copywriting and just writing in general. And join me for a chat and a cup of coffee. Please make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!